Welcome back to Killer Stories. I'm your host, Bobby Holmes. Last week, I gave shout-outs to a few listeners who were kind enough to send messages about their love for the show, one of them being Herb Hall. Herb wanted to hear more stories from Utah, and like I said, I have many on my to-do list to choose from. Today, I'm covering the case of Martin and Michele MacNeill. Neither are originally from the area, but the crime occurred in Pleasant Grove, Utah. Sometimes I feel like I should be titling my episodes after the victims versus the killer, but for serial killers who have multiple victims, that can get tricky. Well, today my title names both the killer and the victim. In April of 2007, physician and LDS Bishop Martin MacNeill murdered his wife, Michele. I'm starting this story backwards. You already know the outcome, but don't worry, there are still many surprising events along the way. Let's get a little background on the MacNeills, starting with Michele. She was born Michele Summers and grew up in Concord, California. As a child, she was a straight-A student. She was on the cheerleading squad, played violin, and loved acting. Michele spent time in Switzerland as a foreign exchange student. She was voted homecoming queen her senior year of high school. Oh, and did I mention she was a model? Yes, I will attach some photos of her. She was gorgeous and won the title of 1976 Miss Concord. She sounds pretty perfect, right? Michele was an avid member of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She met Martin at an event for young LDS singles. They fell in love and married not long after in February of 1978. One thing I can vouch for is the speedy process of a Utah wedding. These two ended up eloping, but in general, couples can plan and execute a wedding in a few months. From what I'm used to growing up on the East Coast, I think about a year is pretty common to spend time in the engagement stage and planning a wedding. But honestly, they don't have quite as much to plan. For most, the ceremony is in a temple or church. It's usually just close friends and family at the ceremony. LDS weddings don't do bridal parties, so no best man, maid of honor, or narrowing down your top 3 besties to stand beside you. Really, the only planning outside of reserving a time for the ceremony is the reception. And some have a seated dinner and reception with guests, but I would say most have a gathering almost like a potluck dinner where you walk through the line, get a plate of food, drop off your gift for the newlyweds, and head home. Anyways, my point is that the engagement period for Utahns tends to be really fast. Since we've covered Michele, let's talk about Martin's upbringing. Martin was born and raised in Camden, New Jersey. His childhood was quite different from Michele's. Not that his parents didn't love and care for him, but the area where he grew up was not bougie California. It was a little more sketchy and had a high crime rate. As far as I know, his family was not involved in that type of behavior. I'm just simply stating that he grew up in the complete opposite environment as Michele. In 1973, he joined the Army. He was actually only 17 years old and lied about his age on his application, the beginning of his web of lies. Within 2 years, he was discharged due to a mental health condition. He was diagnosed as a latent schizophrenic, which is more of a mild form of schizophrenia. There aren't any outbursts or voices in your head. It's more like the person is unable to think clearly and struggles to understand what is real or not real. In that case, I think most of America is latent schizophrenic. In 1977, Martin was watching a 60-minute special about people who write fraudulent checks. He thought they were being careless. He felt he could do it better and be able to get away with it. While living in California, he started his life of crime writing fraudulent checks. But it turns out that he couldn't do it better. He was arrested and let out on bail until his trial. In the meantime, Martin and Michele eloped. 4 months after the couple wed, Martin was convicted of forgery, theft, and fraud. He was sent to prison for 6 months. What a way to start your marriage. After his release, Martin applied to 2 different medical schools. On his applications, he altered his grades and transcripts so that he would be accepted. I don't think that's something you can get away with these days, but this was the early 80s and everything was paper copies. Now the school just emailed the digital transcripts. He was accepted into both medical schools that he applied to. Not only did he graduate to become a physician, but later he finished a law degree from BYU in 1990. Even if he falsified his grades to get into the schools, both degrees require a ton of hard work, dedication, and intelligence to complete. I don't know about that latent schizophrenia diagnosis. It sounds to me like he was able to think pretty clearly. Not sure how you could get through medical or law school otherwise. Even with very high-paying careers, he still continued to collect his veteran Social Security benefits. He began working as an osteopathic surgeon in California, and I had to Google what that meant, but apparently it's just a fancy word for saying that he's a general doctor or general surgeon, not specializing in any one field. In 1987, Martin and Michele moved from California to Utah. This is where he attended BYU for law and simultaneously worked as a physician. They had 4 children together: Rachel, Vanessa, Alexis, and Damien. You can tell with his past of altering applications and transcripts that he's a sketchy dude. Well, it only gets worse. In 1990, he was charged with Medicaid fraud. He pled no contest, which is basically an admission to guilt without actually saying it. Martin was banned from billing Medicaid insurance for 12 years. In the late 90s, Martin was working at the BYU Health Center. He stepped down from his position there in 1989 due to accusations of misdiagnosis, unprofessional conduct, and rape. Rape of a coworker, a patient. I don't have these details, but a year later, once all the accusations faded from the forefront of people's minds, he returned back to work at the BYU Health Center. It wasn't long before more complaints came in about Dr. Martin MacNeill. He only worked there for 3 additional months. In the year 2000, he was appointed as the medical director of the American Fork Training School. How accusations of rape and constant complaints of your medical conduct land you a job as a medical director is beyond me. Later that year in August, the first sign of an extremely troubled marriage was documented. Michele caught Martin looking at porn. I don't know what her reaction was, but I do know pornography is a big no-no within the religion. Martin then threatened to kill her and himself with a knife, prompting Michele to call the police. You know how sometimes people think having a baby might solve their relationship issues? It's like the stupidest idea ever. Well, Martin and Michele essentially doubled the size of their family and adopted 4 more children, 3 of which were from the Ukraine: Giselle, Elle, Sabrina, and Ada. But Ada was actually the daughter of Vanessa, one of their biological children, making her the MacNeill's biological granddaughter. My guess is Vanessa had her at a very young age and was not able to care for Ada on her own. Well, adding to their family did not solve any problems. Martin began an affair with a woman named Anna Walthall. She was seeing a psychiatrist and spilled the beans about her new man. She told him that she was dating a serial killer. Martin shared with her that he killed his own brother in the bathtub. He also admitted to attempting to kill his mother when he was young. He told Anna that he would help her kill her husband and get him out of the picture if that's what she wanted. How do you find out secrets like that and not go running for the hills? Seems like Anna may have some issues as well. Their relationship didn't last. In 2005, Martin met another woman online named Gypsy Willis. It was around this time that his family started noticing a change in Martin. He had always been arrogant and self-centered. As a doctor and a lawyer, he believed he was more important than everyone else. But now he was obsessed with his appearance. He was actively losing weight, getting fit, and going to tanning salons. Could have simply been a midlife crisis, but I'm going to guess it had something to do with his side chick. For 2 years, he lived a double life with his mistress. In 2007, Michele caught on to his infidelity. She would confront him, but things always ended in denial, aggression, and sometimes Martin threatening suicide. Michele knew something was up. She was feeling very insecure in her marriage. She had never once thought about cosmetic surgery, but when Martin suggested that she get a facelift, Michele thought maybe he was cheating because he no longer found her attractive. She wanted to do whatever it took to keep your family together. She agreed to move forward with the surgery, but unfortunately, Martin had ulterior motives. Following surgery, her surgeon prescribed the typical pain medications. Martin requested that she have something stronger. Given that Martin himself was a physician, the surgeon did what he asked and prescribed diazepam and oxycodone. I'm a little confused why he agreed to prescribe diazepam. I can understand oxy for pain, but diazepam is more like a sedation type drug. We prescribe it at the dental office if a patient has high anxiety about a procedure and it helps calm them. But they need a driver to and from the appointment because it makes you really loopy. Another reference I used for this story listed additional medications: Lortab, Valium, Phenergan, and Kelflex. Kelflex is an antibiotic to help avoid infection. Phenergan is oddly an antipsychotic medication, which to me seems strange, but apparently it can be used to treat difficulty sleeping and nausea as well. I feel like it's overkill to prescribe both Lortab and oxycodone or diazepam and Valium. I know doctors push pills like candy, but I think the plastic surgeon had to know something wasn't right here. The day after Michele's surgery, she confronted Martin about many calls and messages being made to a Gypsy Willis. A few hours later, her daughter Alexis went into Michelle's room to check on her. She was a limp noodle and barely responsive. Alexis called for help from her father, who stated that she had just thrown up her medicine, so he gave her another dose, admitting that he must have overmedicated her. Alexis was attending school in Las Vegas. Before she left to head back, Michele told her daughter, quote, "If anything happens to me, make sure it was not your dad." 5 days later, Alexis called and spoke to Michele around 8:44 a.m. She told Alexis she was doing well, just continuing to rest so she can heal. 24 minutes later, Martin calls Alexis. He said he was at work, but asked if she could call her mother. He went on to say that she wasn't doing well and had trouble getting out of bed that morning. He must not have known that they literally just spoke. Big red flag in the eyes of Alexis. According to Martin, he was at work from 8 to about 11 when he went downtown and attended a safety fair. He wasn't there long because he picked up Ada from school around 11:35 a.m. They were back home by 11:45, and Ada, who was 6 years old by the way, found her mother, or grandmother's, body in the bathtub. She was lying face down in the water, dead at 50 years old. When Michele was found, Martin told his son Damien and his girlfriend to get rid of the prescription medications, saying he didn't want people to know that she underwent plastic surgery. Give me a break. The majority of Utahns have had some sort of plastic surgery. He has to know that even if you throw away the pills, an autopsy will prove what and how much she ingested. The autopsy showed that Michele had cardiovascular disease and her death was ruled an accident by natural causes. A tox screen was run, but none of the medications present were at toxic levels. There was a memorial service held for Michele. Martin gave the eulogy, but instead of using this time to talk about Michele and her life, strangely he talked about himself and how life was, quote, unfair to him. Michele died on April 11th. On April 17th, just 6 days later, Martin invited his daughter Rachel to join him at the temple to pray. Not to pray for the family to get past this horrific event of Michele passing. No, he wanted to pray that he would find a nanny to help care for his children. And just like that, their prayers were answered. A woman walked into the room. You guessed it, Gypsy Willis. Knowing what she knows now, Rachel says the encounter in the temple that day did seem very scripted. None of the children knew about Gypsy as their father's mistress. They just thought she was their new nanny. But for some reason, this nanny didn't cook or clean or nanny at all. When Alexis and Rachel confronted their dad about it, he kicked them out of the house. In the summer following Michelle's death, their daughter Giselle went back to the Ukraine to visit her biological sister. Little did she know that Martin planned for this to be a one-way trip, using her identity for his soon-to-be wife. Gypsy was in deep debt, so the plan was to use Giselle's social security number to open bank accounts under a false name in order to escape her bad credit. You aren't even going to believe this part. Martin changed his will. He left $1 to each of his children, and everything else will go to Gypsy, or whatever alias she was going by at that time. $1. What is the point of that? Absolutely ridiculous. September 2007, a bombshell was dropped. One of his daughters filed a police report against Martin for molestation. Alexis claimed that her father stuck his hand down her pants on more than one occasion, and when she awoke said, "Whoops, I thought you were your mother." No, that doesn't happen. She was coming forward because she wants to protect her younger sisters against the sexual predator and murderer that is their father. Unfortunately, these charges were dismissed. Martin is obviously not in the running for any Father of the Year awards, but listen to this. Another daughter was suffering with addiction and came to him for help. Instead of, say, checking her into rehab or offering her a safe place to stay, he instead suggests mutual suicide, meaning the two of them would kill themselves together. I just can't get past how effed up this man really is. In January of 2009, Martin was charged with 9 counts of identity theft regarding the accounts opened for Gypsy Willis using his daughter Giselle's social security number. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. In 2010, the MacNeill's only son, Damien, committed suicide by overdosing on prescription pills. This poor family has been through so much. It hurts my heart to see the domino effect that Martin created. The case of Michelle's death was closed, but her sister, Linda Clough, and the children were extremely concerned. They knew Martin was responsible and had to fight for justice. They wanted the talk screen to be reviewed and the investigation reopened into Michelle's death. The talk screen was reviewed by a new set of eyes. The doctor stated that while they weren't at toxic levels individually, the combination of medications could most definitely cause heart failure. October 2010, the manner of Michelle's death was changed from accident to undetermined. A step in the right direction. July of 2012, Martin was released from prison for his identity theft charges. He goes back to living in the house where he killed his wife 5 years earlier. 1 month later, he is charged with the murder of Michele. The trial didn't begin until the following October in Provo, Utah. It only took the jury 11 hours to decide that Martin was guilty of murder, as well as obstruction of justice and making her death appear to be an accident. He was sentenced to 15 years to life, plus 1 to 15 years for obstruction of justice. While he was serving his sentence, the charges for molestation against his daughter Alexis were refiled. This time the charges stuck, and he had an additional 1 to 15 years. Sounds to me like he needs to be in there for life. But April 9th, 2017, Martin cut his sentencing short by committing suicide. He was found lying on the grounds by the prison greenhouse. He used a hose and a natural gas line to do himself in. It was noted multiple times during his sentencing that he attempted suicide. You would think that they would have kept closer tabs on him. I never understand why people think killing their spouse is easier than just getting a divorce. Yes, divorces are messy and people get hurt, but as you can see from this case, murder is never the answer. Grow some balls and end your relationship if you aren't happy. The death of Michele only caused depression, addiction, and even more deaths within the MacNeill family. The bottom line is that Martin MacNeill was a disgraceful human being, a liar, criminal, sexual predator, and murderer. With the similarities of Michele and his brother dying in the bathtub, I do not put it past him to be the one responsible like he had claimed to his old girlfriend, Anna. I can't believe that people like this exist in society and hold such high regard for themselves. Thanks, Herb, for requesting a Utah case. I had this one in my back pocket ready to go. If you'd like to send a story suggestion, please email KillerStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on social media at Killer Stories Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm on Twitter at Killer Stories PC. Last week, I covered a story suggested by Danny Henson. Shout out to Danny for then going on and buying me 5 beers at buymeacoffee.com/killerstories. You're the best. In case you are wondering, the money doesn't necessarily go to beer. I have it all saved in an account, and I'm currently saving up for a new microphone. I switched up my recording space again, and I love the space and the lighting, but I'm annoyed with the echo. So bear with me, improvements coming your way. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, this has been a killer story.